Welcome along everyone to the Timeform weekend preview. I'm Jamie Lynch, but primarily I'm joined by Dan Barber, and we're going to look at the three, probably the main races of the weekend. Certainly one headline race, and either two or more bet compelling races, or so goes the theory. Now, what's your cliche of choice for the National Hunt season? Is it full swing, is it top gear, or is it up a notch?
I think it's hotting up.
Hotting up?
But I have a beef with that phrase anyway, because for me it's not even a word.
Hotting, no? You wouldn't use it in everyday life.
You heat something up, don't you? You don't hot it up.
So if you have a microwave meal for one, as most of us do at Timeform, you tend to heat it up, don't you, rather than hotting it up.
Yeah, you hot up the pot noodle, no.
Whatever the cliche is, it certainly applies to this weekend, because we've got some big guns all around Britain and Ireland over probably 3 days, not just two, but we're going to concentrate on the Saturday. And naturally we're going to start with the Ladbrokes trophy. We might know it, you might know it better as the Hennessy Gold Cup, but it's the Labrokes trophy. Of course we will.
Undoubtedly.
So what have we got? 13 runners this time around, which is a little lighter in terms of numbers than we normally get. Last three runnings have had horses running off marks of 160s. That's not the case this time around. 157 is the top weight. That's Black Cotton. And this idea of second season chases being a way into this type of race, a lot of those involved here, and Thomas Patrick is Timeform top rated, is that second season chaser. So can you at least understand why he's favourite with most firms?
Yeah, sure can. I mean, you talk about second season chasers, you've got to ask the question, which of them are conventional ones, which ones have had maybe a lighter campaign, which has continued to grow as the season's gone on. I don't think that does apply to the top weight Black Cotton. I think we know loads about him, and I thought he was off for his life on his reappearance at Wetherby in the Charlie Hall. So for me, he's a good one to have top weight, in the sense in that there's not a real class edge there. You're not dealing with a top weight who could be a Gold Cup horse. We know he isn't. So maybe the lurkers lie a little further down, and I think top of that list is Thomas Patrick, who's had the spin, which I like to see. And you and I were chatting earlier about what he did in his chasing debut at Chepstow, and that was a bit of a freakish finishing effort. Not saying we knew then that he was going to do what he did, but the strides he made were just so impressive. All his form lines were strong. We got that step back defeat at Chepstow. He went on to boost that form later in the campaign by winning the Bet365 on the final day. He resumes as the obvious favourite for me.
And that chasing debut we're referring to at Chepstow, that was on the 2nd of February. It's remarkable the strides that this horse made in such a short space of time. Mention the form lines. Well, that one direct form line from his reappearance at Sandown, he was behind Elegant Escape. He's £5 better off today or tomorrow. Is there a sense that he might have an extra edge on him that Elegant Escape might not, or do you see it as that position could still be confirmed between the two?
No, I get the sense that Elegant Escape was probably less likely to be using that as a means to an end than Thomas Patrick was. It was a period where Tizard was having loads of winners anyway, but the work, I mean, Thomas Patrick trainer, he's just blowing everyone out of the water. Some of his work in bumpers and stuff, I mean, he just clearly is a top-notch operator, and I imagine he'd have had Hennessy in mind from the back end of last season, probably midway through last season, when Maroney obliterated them in that race at Newbury, the novice handicap. Marked him down as a horse that would be of interest in all the top staying handicaps this season, and I don't think for a second he had, and a trainer as clever as that wouldn't have left a bit to work on first time back. Yeah,
and Richard Johnson as well. They really are a match made in heaven, these two, because it's all about the rhythm, and it's all about, when you think of great Hennessy performances over the years, you think about that rhythm, and you think about prominently ridden horses who just jump and travel and mechanically stay on, and he very much fits that bill. Second season chaser, Ms. Parfois, the mare, well, she sort of had everything wrung out of her, considering the campaign she had. Reynoldstown, Cheltenham, then Aintree. Her chance is pretty clear for everyone to see, but perhaps more interesting, and perhaps which needs a little more fleshing out, is this Dingo Dollar, a little more unheralded, but he's on your sort of longer shortlist for this.
Yeah, he might be the shortest of shortlists, actually, because it's as much about the prep as anything else. I mean, it's blatantly obvious. Spin over hurdles, that qualifies you for the Patents, but we know with a horse like him, who I remember going back digging in his pointing days before he ever ran under rules. I mean, he broke the clock in some point-to-point in Ireland, smashing up the time clock by horses that were established and where we knew where we stood. But it was obvious in hindsight that it was only until he went chasing that he was really going to reveal that full ability that he displayed on the clock in the point-to-point. Hurdling was just a path to give him a bit of extra experience, and what he is a thorough stayer whose progress continued right up until towards the back end of the season. Really good second in a strong novice handicap. Yes, he's in a different calibre race here. He was up against novices there. He's up against genuine, smart and high-class horses in this, because it's a Hennessy, so he will have to raise his game. You see his position, he's 5 on the race card, so he's achieved a lot already, despite probably not having tackled this level of competition before. But he just got an ideal profile for me. He had that spin, and Kingy has won this race, hasn't he, with Smad Place and Etel. So he's another yard, I imagine. All along, Hennessy would be the plan for this horse, and getting him fit over hurdles on his reappearance will surely have benefited.
It's obviously the Labrokes Trophy is the sort of race where we can talk in glowing terms about every competitor in the field, because that's the sort of level we're dealing at. But we've got the prices in front of us as they stand early on Friday afternoon. Just looking at those, are you thinking the Dingo Dollar at those prices, or
he's getting towards a price I wouldn't like? Ones I wouldn't want to back at this price now are Elegant Escape and Miss Power Footer.
Yeah,
I think 92 the pair.
And Black Cotton, as you mentioned.
Yeah, Black Cotton. So you basically 11 to 8 or something. The pair Elegant Escape and Miss Power Footer. That wouldn't be for me. The Absolute Rag isn't a million based on his reappearance form. West Approach, a horse who was highly tried as a novice hurdler, was likely to start fav for an Albert Bartlett had he not gone the staying route instead. And he did shape really well under an aggressive ride. He'd probably bounce to the moon next time, so perhaps they won't be able to get him back so soon. But the fact that he's a 33's chance with a really good handicap run to his name this year gives you some indications to what we are dealing with here. My shortlist, if you want a shortlist, and I want yours as well, JMO, I'd be Dingo Dollar 1, Thomas Patrick 2, and then it was a toss-up for me for the third place, but I'm going to go with American to try and redeem himself, a horse who was favourite for this race last season. Wants the mud, he'll be one of those that will be pressing it early, and yeah, we know he's got an awful lot of ability. Yeah,
my 1-2 would be Thomas Patrick on top, just in terms of a box-ticking exercise. He's everything you'd want from the sort of horse he is and the sort of race that this asks of a certain horse. So he's got
a stronger upward trajectory, hasn't he, as well? I mean, his progress was vast. Dingo Dollars was perhaps more gradual, albeit he still made great strides. So I agree, the one who has probably got the most scope of those to go on is Thomas Patrick, but I just like the solidity of Dingo Dollar, and I like the bigger price.
But I was tempted by American as well, and simply a numbers game with him, in that he was 5-1 for this race last year off a mark of 157, and he's now double that price off a mark of 154. Obviously, things haven't gone to plan with him, but there have been times in this horse's career where he's looked a proper Grade 1 chaser.
Yeah, Warwick novice chase, where he obliterated them, jumped those fences better than you'll see any horse, and what about what he did at Cheltenham as well in the New Year, when his last horse off the bridle, he sort of shaped like a bit of a problem horse, and that's the rub with him, isn't it? 3 starts last season, confined to that. One was the PU in this, and then he wasn't seen again until January. So he's obviously not easy to keep sound, but I suppose as a result, that's meant that he is more likely raced than most horses of his age, so it's not beyond the realms that he could come back.
And we are dealing with Harry Fry here, who's got a track record, including this year, of repairing and reprogramming horses off long absence or off problems. So that's our overview of the Ladbrokes Trophy. Normally on this day, obviously, Newbury is centre stage, but if anything, the spotlight is more on Newcastle this year because of this unusual scenario where we've got a fighting fifth, which isn't the procession it often is in most years, but it's a proper champion hurdle trial, and in fact, almost in many ways, a champion hurdle in itself because of the heavyweights we've got involved. Now, who stands to win or lose the most from tomorrow's fighting fifth out of those bigger guns?
I think it has to be the main player in everybody's lips is Sam Crow for the whole jump season. I think it applies to him. It's, if nothing else, tomorrow he's going to give us a real insight into whether this horse is a champion hurdler. I do not for a second doubt he's a top-class hurdler or top-class jumper. I do, however, doubt that he's a top-end 2-miler. And I've said a few times, social media on at the races, the reasons as to why that is. Partly it's physique. I just don't think he's built like a traditional 2-mile hurdler. If he's able to overcome that, I mean, most horses like him would be chasing by now, and it almost makes me suspicious as to why they haven't gone over fences, because it's the Giggins Town MO as a rule, and in terms of physique, they've been no more obvious chaser in the novice hurdle ranks last season. Reappearance run, I don't know. mixed messages. The fact that he wasn't able to cope with the gears of Bedrock I thought was a bit alarming, whether he needed it or not. Look, he'll leave that form behind and he'll probably reverse as well. But he meets the champion hurdler, and he meets, in my opinion, a horse who's at least as exciting as Sam Crow when it comes to the 2 mile division. Not necessarily overall, but certainly for a champion hurdle.
So we'll leave Bouverdere till the end because he's the easiest to talk about in many ways. But when Somerville Boy won the Supreme, did you think immediately champion hurdle rather than chasing, as was the case with, you know, mentioned Sam Crow and the decision they had to make? Did you think that's a potential champion hurdle winner?
Not necessarily right away, because a bit like you're saying there, I thought it might be the Black Op thing, go chasing. It's the George way, it's probably the Brookhouse way as well. Buys expensive horses who will earn most of their money when they go over fences. But you just watch that race back and you talk about freakish ability, horses doing stuff that ordinary horses can't. And for me, it appears that everybody who follows national hunt racing has Kalashnikov as their favourite horse, the horse to follow. Somerville Boy made 2 terrible mistakes in the latter stages, conceded upwards of 8 lengths and still cut him down, despite the fact Kalashnikov was by no means stopping in front. That was, for me, a rare show of ability. Just the sort of performance that conventional horses can't produce, that to go that extra mile and to have an engine to overcome something like that. So it's one thing getting into a position to challenge, but to then sustain it and go right by was just staggering. The big question we have is he's one of the 2 that hasn't had a run. 2 of them have, in terms of the other market principles with Bedrock and Sam Crow. But I see no reason why he wouldn't be ready to go. It seems they've decided early that the champion hurdle is the plan.
And that this race was the plan as well. I think that he planted his flag in this race even before Bouverdere and Sam Crow.
Still a bit like though, pinching ourselves, that I still, part of me doesn't really believe that all 3 will turn up. It almost seems too good to be true, doesn't it? I was there last year and Bouverdere was 6s on to beat Irving and the Flying Tiger. It seems crazy that a year or so on, this is actually now the premier champion hurdle trial at this very early stage, because we won't get another field, I don't think, between now and then, whereby 3 of the first 5 or 6 in the betting are all taking each other on.
So this Somerville Boy as well, I think you've hit on the pertinent point of the question with him is, it's twofold. It's ability, can he live with the big guns, and 2 is fitness. But I think that the Tom George MO generally is to have his horses ready first time. We talked a lot already here about Sam Crow, this being his big day. Well, it's also the big day for Somerville Boy, and just to find out whether he is championship class. With Bouverdere, you work him backwards from the champion hurdle, because we know Nicky Henderson knows that he is a champion hurdle dual winner. And therefore, that gives him a little bit more wheel room, a little bit more time and preparation leading up to Cheltenham. 6 to 5 he is, as we sit here on Friday. If you had to sort of guess at his SP Bouverdere, it's probably not going to be shorter than 6 to 5, is it? But it could be 7 to 4.
A certain person with the initials JPM might have a better idea as to what sort of price he might go off. But I think the question is, as much as anything, his readiness. Because like I say, 12 months ago, his record generally is outstanding, but his record fresh is as well. But last year was a 6s on exercise gallop. He'll have to be at peak fitness, if these 2 are, to see them off, I think. And if you scratch below the surface, is his 2 mile hurdle form really all that? You had Mick Jazz not beaten far. It was the first time he'd been properly tested in a race, and Mellon nearly got the better of him. I suppose it says a bit about Sam Crow that Mellon, having pushed Bouverdere so close, then goes to Punchestown and is almost unconsidered in the market against Sam Crow the day they both fell. Sam Crow was odds on that day. So we know how the land lies with the reputation for Sam Crow. But for me, Bouverdere is priced to some extent because he is the champion. Is he an outstanding champion? And is he going to be cherry ripe first time back, given that we know Hendo likes to pick the odd penalty kick along the way as a rule?
I mentioned the cliches at the top of this piece about describing the national and season generally, but another cliche is, if I was to give you a £20 free bet, would you do it in this race, or would you do it with a champion hurdle with an eye to what might happen in this race?
Can I Dutch? I'll split stakes. I'll have a tenner on Somerville Boy for the champion and a tenner on Sam Crow for the stayers.
Wow, Sam Crow for the stayers. I like that.
2 things are going to come out of this. He's going to prove himself a champion hurdle horse, in which case he's second fav anyway, Or you take a risk that he proves himself not quick enough to go with top end 2 milers and you get a bigger price about the stayers.
Really good point. So we'll finally move on to the Rehearsal chase at Newcastle, which is a handicap. Bouverdere won the Fighting Fifth last year. This is his regular haunt. And we've got a few regulars as far as this specific race is concerned with this Rehearsal chase, because Otago Trail won it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Who did he beat?
I can't remember.
Bristol de Mai.
Oh yeah, he did. Bristol de Mai. Yeah.
Bishop's Road was 4th in that race, and then he was 2nd last year to Beware the Bear. But this year, the top 5 in the market, as we sit here on Friday afternoon, are all making the reappearance. They include Ballydean, Big River, Baywing, Ami des Bois, and Lakeview Lad. Lakeview Lad's a really likeable horse, isn't he? Full stop.
I see he's snapped up by Hemmings. I don't know if that happened before. Yeah. Maybe it passed me by last back end, but it strikes as if Hemmings has seen a potential national horse there. For me, he'd always have stamina doubts, but what a beautifully honest horse he is. Enthusiastic front runner, revels in the mud. And he'll be bang there at the finish, but I do always feel he's slightly vulnerable to strong stayers at the end of races over this sort of trip. And I remember the race 12 months ago, they went a bit mad. And Bishop's Road had first stab at the Venetia horse Yalarenki. Yeah. Looked like he'd taken his measure, and then Beware the Bear, who goes for the Labrokes trophy on Saturday.
Who'll be off the bridle.
Yeah, he swooped through late to chin them both, and me and Nick Robson were in tears basically afterwards, because neither of us could believe the price of Bishop's Road. The fact is, the prices this time around is perhaps a reflection that he doesn't win very often nowadays, and he is turning out just a week after a pretty punishing race at Haydock. Well,
if you are going to be outstayed in this race, you're more likely to be outstayed by Baywing, who run the Ida round here. It's probably on the aftermath of that, his handicap marks probably reflects all of his ability.
It does, and the Ida's a pretty unique test. Unique. I don't like to say pretty unique, I know that's poor English, but it's a unique test in the sense that it is arguably the strongest test of stamina in the whole calendar when the ground's bad. If you remember that race a few years ago when Compañero won it, I mean 1 or 2 finish, even Merigo was a multiple winner of loads of staying prizes. I don't think he even got home that day. So Baywing's got to do it first time out a shorter trip on ground that won't be as bottomless. For me, I don't want to say you can put a line through him because he still had little racing as a stage handicap chaser, but the perfect storm for him was that day in the Ida when it was 4 miles plus, bad ground. I think he'll struggle to match the figure.
And every sort of race you come to, every handicap in particular, is like a risk assessment where you try and judge the ability compared to the environmental factors and where the horse is at. Otago Trail. I mean, he's one of those horses where you know his ability. You look at the price of 10 or 12 to 1 on Friday afternoon, and you know that Venetia's capable of this, certainly in a heyday. So is there a little side angle with you and with him that makes you think, well, actually, the risk-reward ratio is in your favour with a horse like him?
At that price, yeah, you similar price to Bishop's Road, who you're probably more likely to get a run from your money for. Yeah. But who's the more likely winner at those prices? So as an each-way bet, you'd take Bishop's Road. As a win-only bet, you'd be all over Otago Trail. 2 things to toy with if you think Venetia will have him ready. They have had a couple win-off absences. They're not firing, and they probably didn't fire all last season relative to the usual standards. But the other thing is as a past winner of the race, presumably this was earmarked very early as a reappearance. And secondly, if you've got a 10-year-old that's had a long absence, you don't want to mess around wasting runs, just getting him back and giving him a jog out, because you don't know how many more chances you're going to get these horses on the track. So I think there's something to cling to if you are thinking he can repeat the win of 2 years ago.